I wanted to put together a quick video on some of the things that I'm seeing really big brands doing when it comes to review content. So if you do product reviews, game reviews, something like that, for example, I want to show you what some of these bigger companies are doing that you might be able to incorporate into your own website. So let's start with looking at techradar.com. If you look for anything related to tech, they're going to be one of the top 5 in most cases. And I came across this article about Silent Hill F. So one thing to keep in mind with a lot of these websites, they have ads everywhere. Unless you're a really big brand, you're probably not going to be able to get away with that. So I would say test it if you want, but be very careful about that. So the title is different than the H1. I'm assuming this is an H1. But so you'll have a long H1, which works sort of like a small summary, and then a very small subtitle here, and a star rating. Then you have your hero image, and then before any of the content starts, you have a verdict. That is a paragraph summary. Oh, you do have the star ratings up here again. And then 2 links to buy. And maybe some of their other pages have multiple links, more than 2. But you have ways to buy here. And then you have your pros and your cons, and then some related articles. And if you scroll down to the end, they'll have a price comparison widget, which has some more ways to buy. So that's TechRadar, and that's what they do for single product reviews. Now, if you look at some of their pages for multiple product reviews, for example, this one, 5 cheap sound bars, they have a jump to section, and it's a bar that lets you jump to all of the products that they're covering, and then an FAQ at the end. They'll have an intro paragraph with some internal linking here, and then they get into some informational text, what to consider as an overall thing about this product category, and then they get into the products. And like I mentioned earlier, you can go to that jump to section to jump right to the product. And then when you do, you'll have some information, related articles. They do a lot of internal linking here. And then the best deals on soundbars. Okay, keep going. You'll get a very short summary, a very short review about that soundbar, and top deals for soundbars. Sony HT S2000, another very short summary, and places to buy it. So they tend to have 3 links visible, and you can do show more if you want to look at other places to buy it. Now, if you look at Tom's Guide, it's very similar, and for a good reason. They're owned by the same company. But I still bring this up because I think Tom's Guide and TechRadar are going to show up so often when you're looking at product reviews. I think they have it figured out. Whatever they're doing has probably been tested, and you can trust that it's likely to work, especially for conversions. These are some good places to look to. And Tom's Guide does do things a little bit differently, but very similar. So you'll see that they have this jump to or table of contents section on the left sidebar. Very small, but it's there, and it scrolls with the page. So you don't have to do that. You could, but I think the main thing here, at least my takeaway, is that there's a table of contents. Then you have your title, a subtitle, your star rating. They are using product schema, and they're not selling this product. It's an affiliate link. So they're using product schema on a product review page. They're using brand schema and review schema. They have rating schema, worst and best rating. Looks like they're using positive notes, and I would assume negative as well. Yep, negative notes. So that would be the pros and cons. And they have author markup, and they're using same as markup for that person. And then they get into the Tom's Guide verdict. Just like TechRadar, they get right to the verdict. They're not wasting any time going through the review. They're just giving you exactly what a reader wants to know right at the top so they can convert. They got their star rating, a very short summary, pros and cons, and then some related articles. And then they get into the meat of the content. So if you want to really look at the review, you can. So that's an individual product on Tom's Guide. Now if we look at multiple products, same thing. So they do it a little differently than TechRadar, but similar. They keep that jump to menu. They have a very specific and succinct H2, a subheader. They go into a few paragraphs of the summary, but it's short. And then they get into all the products that they're reviewing here. They have 8 products here, all within a grid. And it does get a little long, might look a little funny, but I'm assuming they've tested this and it works. So something to keep in mind. They have their top pick, runner-up, and then they go into some of the more special use cases, best wallet case, very short headers. They have some of their specs, positives and negatives, and then a short summary. Something I see a lot, even with myself, I put together things like this on my own websites, and I think, that just looks weird. I don't like the way it looks, how it's just a long column all smushed together. But look what big brands are doing. They're doing it. People don't seem to mind. And actually, when I'm looking at the site, I don't mind. So think about some of those things when you're doing this for your own website. And while Amazon is the default, you can see that they are using other links too when they have them. For example, this one has Best Buy, Nordstrom, and Macy's. So whenever you can, give your customers options. Not everyone likes to buy from Amazon. And now let's look at Engadget. This looks like any typical review page. A useful header, a useful subheader, but they're keeping it short. One thing too that you might notice with all of these pages, their headers are long. They're getting the most important information that they need to get to the reader in this header. And one thing that I find a lot with a lot of clients is that they try to keep everything in one line. They want to keep it short, but this just goes to show you here that you don't need to keep it on one line. Don't worry about going a little bit long. And then we jump into the product. So they have a header image and a very short summary intro paragraph, some internal linking. That's another thing that's very common within a lot of these articles, is that there's really good internal linking. And then they get into the product. And then you have a short summary, a rating. This site uses a 100-point rating. So this product has a 75 out of 100. Pros and cons next to each other in a table, and then places to buy it. And then they get into the really in-depth review if you want to go through it. All right, and then Wirecutter, a site everybody knows, I think. First, we'll look at an individual review, just a single product. So it's written a lot like a blog post, a bit of a longer, and this one is 3 lines, a bit of a longer heading, and then some intro about the product, some images, another paragraph, and then they have this little widget inserted in, best for. I thought that was a really interesting way of talking about what is this product best for. Best laptop backpack for polished upscale design, a really short summary of the product, and 2 places to buy. So they keep it really short, and their links default to Amazon, I believe. Yes. So while you can buy it from Amazon and Troubadour, their default option is Amazon. So even if you have multiple links, something to think about too, even if you have multiple links here, don't worry about making your header or subheader, whatever you have, your links here, just choosing one default and then having multiple at the bottom or somewhere in your widget. And then the review goes on, more photos, like a standard review. Very long, in-depth. All right, now if we look at multiple products on Wirecutter, so a very SEO-friendly header, best portable Bluetooth speaker, short summary, and then a grid carousel. Also keeping it really succinct. So they have their top pick, best portable Bluetooth speaker, defaults to Amazon links, but there's multiple ways to buy at the bottom of the widget. And then they have their specific use cases next to it. So budget pick, best for someone who wants a tiny ultra portable speaker, best for. So there are unique ways of talking about other products, even if you don't recommend some of those products as an overall pick. You can turn it into, like, this isn't the 3rd best or 4th best product. It's actually best for a specific use case. And you'll see that there's also this table of contents menu here at the top. So you can scroll through and jump to different sections. And if you go down a little bit more, then you get into the meat of the review. And starting with their top pick, again, this widget is inserted here. It's mentioned as their top pick. They put it at the very top, and multiple links to buy. And then they start going through each of the other products. Looks like each one has about 3 paragraphs, but these are like 1 to 2 sentence paragraphs. And then some information to close it out. You know, why you should trust me, what kind of experience this person has with speakers. They're clearly targeting some SEO type content here, but also I think a lot of EEAT stuff. So you know you can trust them as a reviewer. And then one last one, Lifehacker. They don't really compete with places like Wirecutter, but Lifehacker is still a pretty big company that does a lot of product reviews, especially tech. They also have learned to get right to it. I think that's the key thing with a lot of these sites. Get right to it. They have a longer headline, a very short subtitle, and then they have a quick look section right at the top of the page. If you don't count this big banner ad at the top, they're above the fold. So they have the quick look section with a star rating and a summary, an overall summary of the review, and a link to buy. Now, if you scroll past that, you'll get to pros and cons, or in their case, the good and the bad, a table of contents, which is in an accordion menu, and then the review. So that's some of the ways that a lot of these big companies are doing product reviews. If you're doing product reviews on your own website, I think look to some of these bigger brands, see what they're doing, get some ideas. Some of the things that I really saw were they're getting right to the point. They're putting the top product at the top of the page. They're not going through all of this information and then giving you the link to the product. They want to convert you right away, so they're putting it at the top. Headlines are a little bit longer. A lot of them have table of contents. There's a star rating or some sort of rating system on all of them at the top. They all have pros and cons. There are always links to buy, and if possible, multiple links to buy. And it seems like a lot of them are defaulting to one source, typically Amazon, it looks like. And if you're reviewing multiple products, you don't have to say that some of the lower ones are bad products. You can just explain it as like the way Wirecutter does, is they're best for these specific reasons. So it's not a worse product, it's just better for certain people. And structured data. So these sites do have structured data on them, and there are different ways, multiple types that you can use in product reviews. You can use product markup, review markup, and author markup. It was helpful for me just going through it and seeing what some of these bigger brands are doing and seeing what I want to include on my own website. So hopefully it was helpful for you in that way too. All right, well, thanks for checking out this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.